I'm looking good, I'm feeling good, I'm so fly.
We're going to be talking about how to manage exercise addiction. So this is a topic that so many of you need to hear and that you deal with, even though you may not think so. This is going to be for those people who love to work out, especially those who love intense training, such as CrossFit, HIIT, high-end weightlifting, intense boot camps. You guys especially want to be listening to this. Okay, so we've talked about how the metabolism is very different from the way that you think it is, right? It is a stress barometer, constantly registering the stress from the outside world. And as we've talked about, a stressed body is a body that does not burn body fat, okay? You cannot, will not make body change with the metabolism that is stressed out. So remember that the 4 pieces to the 4M fat loss pyramid is going to be mindfulness, movement, meals, and metabolics. What we're going to be talking about today is in the metabolic section, okay? And we're going to basically talk about how to approach training in a way that is, for one, sustainable, and then 2, is not so stressful on the system, so that we can continue to lose body fat and have a very lean lifestyle that's easily maintainable. Okay, so we're talking about the top section here. Let's get into it. All right, so metabolism is your metabolism is a stress barometer. Okay, it is not like, although many of you think it's like a calculator or a chemistry set, it is not designed like that, okay? It is more like a stress barometer, okay? So it's funny, most of you guys think that the metabolism is there to burn body fat, and it is not there. It is not designed for you to look good. It does not care about your vanity concerns. It does not care about your deadlines. It doesn't care how much you want to work out, how much you like CrossFit, how much you like lifting. It just doesn't care, okay? It wants to be in balance. And this is something that you guys really need to wrap your head around, okay? Its whole job is to adapt and react to stress, okay? So it is constantly taking things from the outside world, whether it be, training, something physical, something psychological, emotional, and it's talking to the inside body and reacting in a way to protect you from further stress, okay? So its whole job is to keep you in balance. So, it is more like a stress barometer, not a calculator where, you think calories in equals calories out. It's not like a chemistry set where everything is revolved around insulin and cortisol and hormones. It's kind of a mesh of everything. In fact, that it's taking a combination of calories and hormones and registering how much stress is on it and adapting in a way that is going to basically sort of protect you from starvation. That's what its whole job was designed to do. Okay, so I want to go ahead and take a minute to talk about stress. This word gets thrown around a lot, and people have this idea that stress is all bad, okay? But the truth is, there is a degree of stress that is absolutely required and probably the most healthy thing that we can do, okay? So stress is shaped like it's like a bell-shaped curve, just like so, okay? So we have to have change and challenge in order for our system to get better. We can't just sit on the couch and expect to be healthy and vital and strong and fit, okay? So there is definitely, there's a sweet spot to stress, No stress is a disaster, so too far left on the bell-shaped curve is a disaster. But then again, too much stress, too much training is also a disaster, okay? So remember, again, a stressed body is a body that doesn't burn fat. Stressed body is going to stress you out, and you will have a very difficult and resistant time to losing body fat. So how do you know if we're getting the right amount of stress for the body to adapt and recover? We know because our body is talking to us all of the time, okay? And I'm going to talk to you about how to decipher that in a bit. But what we first have to understand is that eustress, which is the positive amount of stress, the right amount of stress, the one that's right in the middle, we want just enough of that. You know, eustress is something that we are doing. We want just enough change and challenge to push us out of our comfort zone, both in life and in training, okay? So the thing you have to remember is that it's when we continue to hammer ourselves again and again and again and do not allow ourselves the ability to heal appropriately, okay? Once stress becomes above our ability to repair and recover and adapt, that is when it becomes a problem, okay? So, for example, let's go ahead and think about what happens in your workouts, all right? So you work out, and then the first thing that happens is a recovery process from the workout itself. This usually lasts about, a few hours or so. And then you go into repair mode. And this process is there to repair the damage that you incurred from the workout itself, okay? And then after the repair mode is the adaptation effects that come next, okay? And then after the adaptation, that's when you expose yourself back to another workout, to another stress, and the whole cycle repeats itself again, okay? Overtraining never allows us to go through that process where you're repairing adequately or adapting at all. And so you become in this constant recovery mode. And this starts to beat up on your system, and you start seeing your system respond with increased hunger, unpredicted and unstable energy, increased cravings, especially for high calorie, sort of rich flavored foods. You also notice an exercise decline in your performance and your recovery. And you'll also probably start getting some aches and pains, and you'll start staying sore for much longer. And you may be a little bit unmotivated to go to the gym. And then also digestion decreases. You get sick, poor sleep, weight gain. Okay, so these are all the effects that happens when you start to notice signs and symptoms of overtraining. Okay, so I want you to understand that when it comes to the nervous system, okay, there's two sides. We have the sympathetic side, which is your stress side, your hypervigilant, the side that gets you motivated and focused and sort of go, get things done type of side. And then there's your parasympathetic side. And that's your rest and relax side. Let's chill, let's be merry, let's laugh, let's hang out, and we want to make sure that we are always in balance with these two sides. And you can kind of think of it like a seesaw, all right? So imagine a seesaw, and when you are stuck in this go type of mentality, either whether it be, like doing a ton of workouts and, every single day and obsessed with that and obsessed with eating less and, wearing, 10 different hats and always self-editing, this just sort of constant go mentality, what you start to do is you weigh down that sympathetic side of the seesaw, okay? And when that seesaw tips, you'll start to notice certain things, such as your hunger and cravings get out of control. Your mood is unstable, your energy is unstable. You typically have less willpower, and you want to go for junk food rather than choosing and being satisfied with like a salad. You also eventually start to notice some weight gain, okay? So this is what happens when you get stuck in this sympathetic overdrive, when you don't allow your body to really have some downtime. And this is the hard part, because we have been taught to go hard or go home, right? That, more is better. And, sleep is for the weak, and it's just this, how much more can you do, right? But the thing is, when you do that, chances are you eventually have to go home and stay home, and you eventually, if you take it to as far as I did, you become fat, sick, and you can start to incur some diseases. Okay, so it's a very serious thing. So again, here's some signs and symptoms that you can use to know if you're going too hard. So when you get stuck in the sympathetic overdrive, a couple things happen, a few things that you'll notice. First off, your metabolic rate does increase at first. And yeah, this may be a good thing in the beginning, but when it's stuck in overdrive over a long period of time, eventually your system starts to break down, and over the long term, your metabolic rate will decline. But acutely, your metabolic rate will go up, okay? And also, your digestion will shut down. This will lead to things like gas and bloating, and a lot of like distension in the midline. You'll be more sensitive to foods that maybe you used to not be sensitive to. So like, let's say you drink a protein shake, and all of a sudden it's starting giving you gas and bloating when it didn't used to. You feeling very overstimulated, like you're always buzzing on the inside, like you're wired but tired. Your immune system goes down, so you find that you're more sick more often, or sometimes maybe you'll go on vacation and that's when you get sick because it's finally getting a break. You also put yourself in a position more to burn muscle, and sleep usually declines as well. Okay, so these are some major red flags if you're starting to have some of these, that you are stuck in a sympathetic overdrive. Okay, the parasympathetic state, on the other hand, is your rest and relax state. And when we are doing things that put us in this type of position, this this state, our metabolic rate slows, but in the long run, it's better. Okay, so it slows down at first, but the thing is, it becomes more of a stress detox for the body. So I wouldn't look at it as a bad thing, because what happens is your digestion improves, which means that you're able to absorb and utilize nutrients more efficiently. You're able to relax and recover. Your immune system improves. Okay, so you won't get sick as often. You put yourself in a position to build muscle and burn body fat, and also sleep is improved. Okay, which is also extremely important for building or burning body fat. And so here's an analogy with a race car. When you push too hard for too long, you can think of it like, being in a sports car and you are, driving on some super straight highway, and you've got the pedal to the metal, and you're not letting off on the gas, and you're just going for nonstop. You don't pull over to get gas. You don't pull over to get maintenance. You don't pull over for anything. What is going to happen at that point? Eventually, if you don't take care and do maintenance and slow down, this engine is going to overheat. The wheels are going to fall off. The engine's going to start breaking down. Okay? And eventually, when it's done long enough, it's going to crash and burn. And this is the same thing that happens with your metabolism. When you have it revved out, it is going to crash and burn at some point if you don't let off the gas. Okay? And again, here are the signs and symptoms. Your metabolism is going to slow down over time. Digestion slows, right? Gas, bloating, distension, lack of motivation. You get sick a lot. Your sleep is disrupted. You can't sleep well at night. You feel wired but tired. You feel like you're buzzing on the inside. You start to get aches and pains. You might even start to look a little puffy every time you eat carbohydrates. Okay? So let's talk about how this actually works physiologically. Okay? So this is your brain, and then this is the hypothalamus pituitary gland, which is basically your command and control center. Okay? And this stress irritates our brain. Okay, it irritates the brain at this level, all right? And then from there, the brain doesn't like this, so it starts to sever the communication with our nervous system between our adrenals, our thyroid, and our gonads, okay? And this is where you start to see symptoms like fatigue, sleep, mood issues, libido, menstrual irregularities. So the adrenals, that's going to give you like kind of like your motivation, your get up and go, all right? And so usually the adrenals are the first thing to go. After that, it's then the thyroid where your metabolism starts to slow down, okay? When you've been in this sympathetic state for so long, your thyroid starts to slow down. Then after that, it's usually the gonads, okay? So your testes for guys and ovaries for girls. You start to notice changes in your libido, or for the ladies, irregularities in your menstrual cycle, or maybe you lose your cycle altogether. All this stuff can happen on a subtle level. And the thing is, we assume that what we should be doing is to just keep training, right? Because training has gotten us to this point where we think more is better, and we've been trained to think this go hard or go home mentality, or all or nothing. And the thing is, if you live by this mantra of all or nothing, it's a silly mantra because it often eventually ends up as nothing. And the pattern just continues to repeat itself, okay? So instead of thinking go hard or go home, what you want to be thinking is be smart or go home. And instead of all or nothing, you want it to be smart or nothing, right? We want smart training so that we don't find ourselves in that crash and burn state like I did. This is just an example of how it affects specifically the gonads, the testosterone for guys, and the estrogen and progesterone for girls. Again, stress happens at the brain, and then it affects, the rest of the nervous system with the adrenals, then the thyroid, and then the gonads. And when it affects your hormones, that's when you will start to notice changes in body comp. So if it's affecting your testosterone and your estrogen and progesterone, that is going to really make it difficult for you to build muscle and burn body fat. So how do you know if you have the right amount of stress, right? For training, we want just enough stress. We know through biofeedback, okay? Your body is smart, okay? And one thing I like to teach is for people to start listening to your biofeedback. And I use two funny little acronyms. One is HEC or SHMEC, okay, which stands for hunger, energy, and cravings, or sleep, hunger, mood, energy, and cravings, okay? And I like to use this one because HEC on its own, so I use both interchangeably, SHMEC or HEC. HEC stands for, HEC, hunger, energy, cravings, and is three of the most important biofeedback tools because they are very responsive to stress in the body. So if you're overly stressed, when you are stressed, what's going to happen is your hunger is going to go up, your energy is going to plummet, and your cravings will go up as well. Now, why does this happen? It happens because your body's wanting to recover, repair, and adapt. It's telling you it needs resources. Your hunger goes up for food, your cravings go up for calories, typically high calorie, rich flavored foods, and your energy goes down, so you're less likely to repeat that bout again. So HEC and SHMEC is a window into how you're handling stress, okay? And SHMEC is just the same thing. It just adds sleep and mood to the equation. And remember, when the body is under too much stress, when sleep is disrupted and mood is unstable, your body is smart and intelligent, and it's talking to you. And it's telling you that it wants you to rest and relax. It wants you to stay in bed, because it's feeling burned out. It wants to take your motivation away, and it's doing things to hold you back from, continuing this cycle over and over, okay? That's putting it in a stress state. And if you're not listening to that, you're running into big trouble. This is where injuries come from, and this is that sort of on and off again mentality when that comes into play. So this is like when, this happens all the time with us. I mean, I know it because I lived it, and, all my training partners, we'd all go through it. But, you have this point where you're on your diet and you do great for a week, and then you lose motivation, and then because you lose motivation, you get into this binge eating behavior, and then because you got into binge eating behavior, you beat yourself up, and then you repeat the bout again. You go back into training hard for a week, lose motivation, eat, beat yourself up, and repeat, right? Who's done that? And so what happens when you go into this like all or nothing mentality is you'll go hard for a week, and then the next week you have nothing left, or maybe you go hard for 4 days, and then you're like, I don't know why I don't have it. Like, and it's just like, well, the thing is, like, we can't continue to sustain the same level of effort that we've always done. Like, you got to understand that getting older is it's part of the process, and you really need to start changing your mindset and your training style if you want to feel good. If you want to feel good and look good, you need to start listening to your body. You can't just constantly be pushing it. And libido is actually a really big one, especially for women, because as a woman, you have a more sensitive stress barometer because you are the child bearer and the body wants to protect you more. And so you may see changes in your ovulation where the female athlete, and this is where the female athlete triad comes into play. Libido falling is a sign of too much training stress. And this is something, that's not normal. The thing is, if your goal is to compete with, through CrossFit or athletics or some sport, then really there's not much you can do about this, right? I mean, you have to train, you have to put in the hours, and so these are just going to be some of the symptoms that you have to deal with. But if your goal is to look good, feel good, then you should be recognizing these types of biofeedback and using it as a way to help you rather than trying to fight against it. Okay, so how do you manage this when you have a training schedule that you want to keep, right? We all love to work out, and we don't want to give up our workouts, and we don't have to, nor should we give up our workouts. But the key is we just can't go hard all the time. And so this is what I've come up with. I personally like to do 4 sessions scheduled for a week, okay? And let me just be clear. I used to train 30 hours a week when I was training for the games. I now train 5 hours a week, and I look better than when I was training 30 hours, okay? I feel way more alive, way more balanced. I look better. I handle carbs better. And so this is, once you realize that you don't have to be training all the time to look good, it's going to be a huge relief. But it's taken that step, and that's what I'm going to help you with, into realizing that, it's actually, you're doing yourself more damage, more harm by training so much. And, but what I want to do is show you, instead of taking training away from you, is I want to show you just how to manage it in a better way, in a more sustainable way. So what I basically do personally is 4 sessions scheduled for a week, typically a combination of, kind of like some strength bodybuilding stuff, and then some metabolic conditioning, aka CrossFit style stuff, maybe with dumbbells and something like that. And I'm doing about an hour a day, 4 days a week. Okay. And what I do is I break it down into 3 different days. I've got a green day, a yellow day, and a red day. Okay. And I've come up with this, again, another fun acronym, the 3R recovery system, so that you can remember, the point of each day. So green days are very intense, and those should be dictated by biofeedback and heart rate variability. Okay. And that is going to be your recharge day, where you just freaking get after it. You go hard, right? You got all this pent up energy, this excitement to train, and you just, you push it, right? And you should be pushing it on the weights, the intensity, and leaving, feeling like you really left it all out there. And then yellow days are days where you decrease intensity, you go slower, you go lighter. And, I also like to add in a component of breathing through your nose. That's how you're not going too hard, because for For the fit addicted people, it's very easy for us to get sucked into going hard, right? Especially like once we start moving, we're like, oh, I'm fine now, you know, but really you need to set an intention prior to the workout and really stick to it. Okay. If you really want to feel good and have body change, this is the way to do it. And so my schedule stays the same. And I let my heck and schmeck dictate really how hard I go. Okay. So if I'm feeling a lack of motivation or a lack of focus, whether it be from, you know, stress or family stuff or whatever, or maybe, I don't know, it was a hard workout or whatever it is, I'll go yellow. Okay. And what I figured out is most of the time I'm spending most of my time in yellow days. Okay. So if I'm training 4 days a week, usually 1 to 2 days are going to be green days and the rest are going to be yellow, you know, and then I have 3 red days, 3 rest days. And so yellow days are my chance where I get to slow down, I go slower, I work on my movement, and they actually end up enhancing my green days, because it, you know, I'm focused on quality movement, and I'm not, you know, using up all my resources. I'm kind of not recharging, because green is recharge, but I'm holding back so that the next day I can go hard, right? And this is going to be a much more sustainable approach for you guys. And red days are completely off, right? So red days, or they aren't completely off. I mean, they're a rest day, and I prefer that you actually don't go into the gym. But it's a day for you to refocus and actually put your attention towards some mindfulness activities. Again, the base of that pyramid, of the 4M fat loss pyramid, where mindfulness is the most important component. Doing things that are going to take stress off of the system. So things like sauna, an Epsom salt bath, walking, you know, especially in green settings, or a massage, or watching a funny movie, or, you know, cuddling with a loved one. All those types of things should be on red days. Okay. And then I also like to do specifically some mindset work, like some mindset, personal growth work, thinking about my future, habit building, stuff like that. One thing about the yellow day, actually, real quick, is, you know, yellow's not just about going lighter. It's also not about like breathing heavily through your mouth. So this is why I like to have this rule of thumb of yellow days, I breathe through my nose only. And, you know, this is helpful because, like I said, it's really easy for us to get stuck in the pattern of just kind of kicking it into the next gear and going hard. And then we're just setting ourselves back for, you know, from what we really wanted to achieve. And also, like, breathing through the nose has a lot of benefits. It's useful for actually increasing blood flow, and it increases CO2 tolerance. So it's really a really great way to condition yourself when you get into the green days. Like, your cardio is going to be that much better because you're training your aerobic system. Okay. And anytime that I have to open up my mouth to get air, that's how I know I'm going too hard. And that can go with like training, or if I'm just going for a jog, or, you know, or doing like even like, I don't know, like yoga, hot yoga, or anything like that. Like, as soon as you have to open up your mouth to breathe, that is a sympathetic response, meaning it is a stress response on the metabolism. Even though it may not feel stressful, your metabolism is registering it as a stress. Okay. So this is how you can sort of keep that under control, is by just keeping your mouth closed. You could probably put a piece of duct tape on your mouth. You could be one of those crazy people, or, you know, just see how well you can do with keeping your mouth closed the entire time. But green, on the other hand, that is like you're going hard, and it should be impossible to breathe through your nose. Okay, so that's like where we want just enough challenge. Okay, so it's super useful to use this way of thinking. So this is going to be one of the things I want us to adapt into our training cycle, starting this week. So, besides biofeedback, like besides the subjective biofeedback of heck and schmeck and libido and stuff like that, where you are trying to feel or understand how you're feeling, there's also some objective indicators such as your resting heart rate and heart rate variability. Resting heart rate, so this is something that you would measure first thing in the morning as soon as you wake up. And really, if you're above or below 10 beats per minute than what your normal resting heart rate is, then that is an indication that you should go yellow or red. Okay. And then heart rate variability is actually a really cool tool to tell you the balance between your sympathetic and your parasympathetic state. So when we're training, we want our sympathetic state to be kicked in strongly, right? But on the other side, like when we're relaxing and hanging out, we want our parasympathetic state to kick in strongly. It's when we get stuck in the oversympathetic drive, where we're buzzing on the inside and we start to see those signs and symptoms and we can't sleep and stuff like that. That's when we want to catch that earlier than later. And this is where heart rate variability comes in handy, because HRV can do this for us. Okay. HRV measures the variance between your heartbeats. So it's the variability, and it's an indication of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system, and the balance of it, right? So the more varied the heart rate, the better the balance and the more stress that it can take. I like to use an app called HRV for training. It used to be free, but I think they're actually charging for it these days. And it's super simple. You just, pull it out in the morning. First thing when you wake up, you put your finger over the flashlight, and it measures your pulse, your finger pulse. And you want to do this every morning to correlate with how you're feeling subjectively with HEC, and then look at the reading for heart rate variability. So this is, again, just another really cool tool that we can use, that is an objective measurement rather than just relying on subjective stuff. So one more thing I want to do is go over how to recover quickly. So how do we recover more quickly? Well, research shows that still the best thing that you can do for soreness and recovery is walking. Okay. Preferably, research shows in green settings at a pace of, I think it's about 2.5 to 2.7, something like that. So it's below a 3.0 on a treadmill. So it's just a relaxing walk through, like kind of smell the roses type of pace. Okay. So not power walking, not done for time or anything like that, but just slow walking is the best, specifically in green settings if you can. And then the next best thing is hot and cold therapy. So, if you have access to like a hot tub and a cold plunge, that's great, but most of us don't. So what I've done in the past, and I still do from time to time, is, a hot bath, and I'll sit in the hot bath for as long as I can until I'm no longer hot. And then I take a cold shower, right? And I just switch back and forth. So, and I basically just stand in the cold shower until I'm no longer really cold. I'm just sort of numb. And I just go back and forth, 3 to 5 cycles. And that is really good for blood flow. Okay. And then the third thing that's also really great is, the use of supplements. So one of my favorite supplements, and also one of the best studied supplements out there for stress is glutamine. Okay. The doses that I typically use is 15 to 20 grams, usually divided into divided doses, but you can also take it all at once. But glutamine is just really great for anybody who is an athlete or has a really high stress lifestyle, or, they've actually done a lot of studies with like burn victims and stuff like that. And it just helps you really adapt and repair from stress, and also keeps your gut really healthy so that you can digest and absorb nutrients more effectively for that recovery process. Other supplements that I use are the adaptogens. I love the adaptogens, so ashwagandha and rhodiola. Ashwagandha is a great one if you're feeling like wired but tired at night. So like you're buzzing on the inside when you go to sleep. Good dosage for that is about 250 to 500 milligrams. And then rhodiola is good for somebody who's just kind of feeling overall fatigue, so tired in the head and in the body. It's something that I take. And then the other ones that you want to look into is creatine, also a very well-studied supplement. Zinc and magnesium are also some of the most depleted nutrients, the most easily depleted nutrients, and everybody, especially athletes, should be taking those. So those are some of the best supplements that I usually recommend to my clients, depending on what kind of signs and symptoms that they're feeling. So how do you know if you're doing it right? Really remember that, guys, like it's whatever works for you. Some people are going to be more stress resilient than other people. Okay. I have clients that can't train more than 2 to 3 days a week. Past that, they're starting to get aches and pains. They can't sleep at night. Their heck goes out of check. And then I have people that are, can train 5 days a week and everything's fine. So, you really need to be your own detective, and be aware of, your heck and keeping it in check. So that's number one is your heck in check? Number two is, are you losing fat? Are you losing inches more specifically? Okay, since we're training, we don't always want to be so focused on the scale. We want to be more focused on our body shape change. And then the third thing is it sustainable? Do you feel good? You guys should feel good, right? You shouldn't feel like it's a chore to go to the gym. I want you excited to go to the gym, right? And I want you leaving the gym feeling better than when you left. And so this is going to be a definite, pretty big mindset shift than what you're used to. But this is how you know you're doing it right. So remember here, there's 4 toggles when it comes to the different approaches that we can use to dieting, okay, or lifestyle. We have the 2 red components, which are going to be more stressful on the metabolism, and that's going to be eat more, exercise less, and eat less, exercise more. That's the dieter approach and the couch potato approach. Those still work very well, but understand that we can't be in those toggles for too long before we start to see compensation effects, meaning hunger, energy, cravings get out of control. So where we want to be living for most of the time is going to be eat less, exercise less, and also eat more, exercise more. Now understand, I did put muscle gain up here for eat more, exercise more, but you can also, it's also a fat loss way. It's just, as long as you're eating less than what you're actually exercising, it's still in a slight caloric deficit is what we're going for in the eat more, exercise more toggle. Okay. But here's the thing. I guess the reason why I say fat loss and eat less, exercise less is because we are already, the fit addicted community. We love working out, right? And we will see the quickest and most profound changes when we start to incorporate more days that include eat less, exercise less, because we are putting so much stress on our system, even though we don't feel stressed because we are so used to the amount of volume that we're working out. It's just that when you go into an EL phase or day, it is like a stress detox, and your metabolism really appreciates that. And so, for our community, I see EL as more of a fat loss phase, and EM is just really honestly a way for us to continue training the way we love to, and still be, stay lean, right? We don't have to eat in excess and focus on gaining muscle if that's not our goal. We can certainly still lose body fat in an EM state. It's just that remember that our metabolism is a stress barometer, and so when it is stressed out, which could be a result of too much training, you will not see results. And so when you start to add in more EL days, you will start to see your metabolism respond more quickly and effectively. All right, guys. There's 2 things. Yep. So 2 things required again for fat loss. And that's 2 things, lasting, sustainable fat loss. Okay. Remember that we need a calorie deficit and hormonal balance. And the 2 ways to achieve those things, again, like I said, is going to be your EL phase and as well as your EM phase. Okay. The dieting approach and the couch potato approach does not put you in a balanced metabolism state, and it throws your heck out of check, which is why it is unsustainable in the long run. So again, EL, especially for the fit addicted community, is a way to break the diet stress. EM is a way to decrease metabolic compensation, which just means that we are feeding you, fueling you for your workouts rather than eating like a bird and, running around like crazy. That ELEM mentality, that dieting mentality, is going to set you up for metabolic compensation and insatiable hunger and cravings in the long run. The key is to always cycle between all 4 toggles, but specifically, for the most part, we'll be living in EL-EL and EM-EM. And that is how you really get your metabolism to respond and keep it on its toes rather than it adapting to one cycle, one approach. So again, the quick overview here is metabolism is a stress barometer. Okay, remember that. We want just the right amount of stress. Okay, too little is a disaster, too much is a disaster. We're looking for just the right amount. We want to use biofeedback to determine if the metabolism is stressed. It is speaking to you all of the time. And we want to use the 3-hour recovery system to manage your training, okay, to manage your addiction to be in the gym, right? We love the gym, but we need to pull back and have some type of structure to keep us from overdoing it, overtraining. And remember, metabolics, okay, anytime that we exercise, metabolics speed up the metabolism, which also will speed up the hunger, okay? So it's just, it goes hand in hand. You know, just because you did a 1-hour workout, it's going to contribute you to wanting to eat more later on. So you want to be aware of how much training you're doing, because 2 hours of training in the morning could be the reason leading you to the 2-hour binge at night. Whereas if you were to just train a little less or train a little less intensely, it would actually be very easy for you to sustain a caloric deficit long term.